And the worst case scenario was I owned raw land. So I'm not filling up my garage with a bunch of stuff, which would annoy my wife, right? I have nothing to maintain, nothing to protect. It can't be destroyed. And with inflation, that just continues to go up in value.
Hey everyone, it's Jenn Foster here with the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. I'm really excited to interview Mark Podolsky today. He is armed with real estate knowledge on land, and I'm really excited because I just got into real estate investing and I'm really wanting to learn more about land. So he has a book that called Dirt Rich, which I'm really excited to talk about. And he escaped the corporate world and the solo economic dependency, and he works as a coach and a mentor to help people achieve financial freedom with investing in land. So welcome, Mark.
Jen, thanks so much for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you got into buying land and kind of a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. So if we rewind the tape to 2000, I was a miserable, micromanaged 45-minute commute to work and back investment banker specializing in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. And Jen, it got so bad for me, I wouldn't get the Sunday blues anticipating Monday coming around. I'd get the Friday blues anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy and he's telling me as a side hustle, he's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar at tax deed auctions. He's flipping them online and he's making a 300% return on his money. And I'm looking at companies all day long. And a great company, great, has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Average company's 10%. I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So of course, I don't believe him.
Yes. 100% sounds like way too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've got 3 grand saved up for car repairs. I go to New Mexico with him. I do exactly what he tells me to do. I buy 10 half-acre parcels, an average price of $300 each. I flip them online and they all sell for an average price of $1,200 each. It worked 300%. So I took all that money. I went to another auction, and this is in Arizona, which is where I live. And again, it's 2000. There's no one in the room, and I'm buying lots of acreage for nothing. So I sell all that land, and I made over $90,000 cash. So I go to my wife, and she's pregnant. I said, honey, I'm going to quit my job and become a full-time land investor. And she said, absolutely not. So I said, okay. So it took 18 months for land investing income to exceed the investment banking income. And then I quit. I've been doing it full-time ever since. I've done over 6,500 land transactions and counting, and still absolutely love it.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, and I can imagine your wife not being happy about you quitting your job when you hadn't quite replaced the income yet. But it sounds like you got there. And so tell us a little about that journey of, being able to have your own, because I know everyone as an entrepreneur strives to not be the worker. They want to be the owner, right? So that journey of being the owner where you can step back and go on vacation and do the things you want to do. Like, tell us a little bit about that journey when you left.
Yeah. So I write about this in my second book, Dirt Rich 2, about scaling your land business. And so my mentor, Ori, this guy sold his business for $365 million. So really just sharp entrepreneur. And I'm going to coffee with him and I'm kind of like humble bragging about my business. Right. And he's asking me these questions and he's like, well, walk me through your day. I'm like, well, I get up early and I do this and I do this and I do this. He's like, stop. He's like, you are not an entrepreneur. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, if you die tomorrow, who's going to do all these things that you're doing? He's like, you have to build systems and processes and you need to start delegating to people. I'm like, oh, so he kind of helped me step by step get out of the business. And so now we use 3 levers to really grow our land business, which is other people's time, software and automation, and other people's money. And that's really what I do and really how I help people escape what I call solo economic dependency, which means that they're not personally working, they're not making any money. So, a W-2 job, solopreneurs, let's pick on people who've solved their money problems, but not their time problems. Doctors, lawyers, the dentist, like the dentist's hands aren't in the patient's mouth. The dentist isn't generating any revenue. So this model is really the escape.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the only model to retirement or to leaving your day to day and going to having other people do your day to day, right?
No, 100%.
And that's the systems and processes.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your first land deal. It sounds like you were saying you only had $3,000 in your pocket. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I'm in New Mexico and I'm at this auction, and you just get a list of the properties that are available for auction. So before you go to auction, you just drive around and you look at the property. Well, this is all rural vacant land. I don't even know what I'm looking at. It all looks the same to me. But, I just want to check it out, make sure there was no dumping going on, other bad neighbors, those types of things that you would look for in your due diligence. And so everything looked fine to me. And I had a limit. I just said, okay, I'm not going to pay any more than $300 for this half acre lot. And it was almost close to the minimum bid. And sure enough, I won 10 of them. And then at that time, what I would do is I would create a land ad and I would put it up on eBay, and I would sell it on eBay in a 10-day auction, and it would sell.
Wow.
But today I do things very differently. And so, Jen, if you want, I can walk you step by step through the model.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So let's use you as a case study. So, Jen, where do you live?
I live in Utah and Salt Lake City.
Okay. You're in Utah and Salt Lake City. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume that you own 5 acres of raw land in Colorado, and you owe
Okay.
$200 in back taxes. So you're advertising two
Okay.
important things to me. Number one, emotional attachment to the raw land. You're in Utah, the property's in Colorado. And number two, you're financially distressed in some weird way, because we don't pay for things like our property taxes. We don't value them in the same way. As a result, the county treasurer keeps sending you notices saying, Jen, if you don't pay your property taxes, you're going to lose that property to a tax deed or a tax lien investor. So all I'm going to do is look at the comparable sales on your 5 acre property for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to take the lowest comparable sale. Let's say it's $10,000. And then I'm going to divide by 4. And that's going to give me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm going to send you an actual offer of $2,500. Now you accept it. Why? Because for you, $2,500 is better than nothing. In reality, 3 to 5% of people are going to accept my quote unquote top dollar offer. But now that you've accepted it,
Right.
I have to go through in-depth research or due diligence. I have to confirm you still own the property. I have to make sure that back taxes are only $200. I want to make sure there's been no breaks in the chain of title, no liens or encumbrances. So I go through this whole big property due diligence checklist, and I outsource it to my team in Jamaica. They're connected to an American title company. So they're creating the plat maps and the aerial maps, the satellite maps, and I'm getting photos and everything I need to do my due diligence, but I'm also creating my marketing at the same time. So we'll assume everything checks out. I send you a check for $2,300. I send the treasurer a check for $200. I own it free and clear. And now I'm going to sell it 3 days or less and make a cash flow like a rental home. So Jen, I have a built-in best buyer. Do you know who it is?
I don't.
It's the neighbors.
Who is the buyer?
The neighbors.
The neighbors.
So I'm going to send out
That's
neighbor
right.
letters. Yeah.
And do you do
Yeah, I'll send
physical
to the
letters
neighbors.
for those
Yeah.
or emails?
Physical letters. So I'll mail the neighbor, say, hey, here's your opportunity, protect your privacy, protect your views, know your neighbor. So oftentimes the neighbors will buy. If they pass, I'll go to my buyers list. The buyers list passes, I go to a little website maybe you've heard of called Meta or Facebook, buy sell groups, the marketplace. And then I'll go to the lands, land.com, landmodo.com, landandfarm.com, landsamerica.com, landflip.com, landcentury.com. These are platforms where people buy and sell raw land. But the secret is in the pricing. So all I'm going to ask for is a $2,500 down payment. And then I'm making a car payment. Let's say $249 a month at 9% interest for the next 84 months. So it's a one-time sale. I'm going to get my money out on the down payment. And then I'm going to get $249 a month at 9% interest for the next 84 months. Jen, no renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no rodents. And because I'm not
No
dealing with a
toilet.
tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this owners real estate legislation. So then it's a simple game. Can we create enough land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses? And then we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
I love that. And what you just created was you became the bank. So they're paying you monthly. So now you have your residual income instead of you having to do like a real estate agent, or like for me, for book publishing, we have to get a new client, go get a new client, go get a new client, where you're not going to get new land, new land, new land just to get the land and they make a one-time sale, but you're creating residual income for them making the months or payments for 84 months. Right.
Exactly.
And then you can easily go and travel and do the things you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, then 100%, then you can just live your best life and really figure out what
Yeah.
is your deepest purpose? What is your greatest gift? Because I think most people are just so exhausted in the grind day to day. They don't have the
Hmm.
time and energy and motivation to even figure it out.
What would you say the percentages of the people that you send the letters to that actually just buy, where you don't have to go and sell it on Facebook or on any land website?
About 20% in general.
Okay.
Yeah. So certain markets
Yeah.
will be a little bit better than others.
Is there certain markets you stay away from, as far, or ones that you were more attracted to, as far as where the raw land is?
Yeah. I mean, Jen, let's face it. Nobody wakes up and thinks to themselves, boy, love some raw land today in Iowa, unless you live in Iowa,
Yeah.
right? So we want to
Yeah.
focus on the sunshine states, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, California, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, maybe a little bit in Northwest, Oregon, Washington, beautiful parts of the Midwest that are treed in Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and then Florida as well. So I'm really trying to avoid anywhere that's going to be either too expensive, right? So I don't want to be in, say, LA or San Francisco or New York, right? If you got an infill lot there, they're not going to sell it to you 25, 30 cents a dollar. So I want to be about an
Right.
hour to 3 hours from the nearest city in areas that
Hmm.
in those sunshine states.
And that's avoiding the
And
snow.
that's avoiding the snow for the most part. Yeah, absolutely.
For the most part, I guess there's some that where have a little bit of
Yeah,
snow.
exactly.
What would you tell someone if they were first time, like, I'm new to investing, I don't know what I'm doing, like, what would you tell them to do to get started?
Yeah, I would say get some education for sure. And there's so much out there. So you can go to a website like mine, you can go on YouTube and look up land investing as well. You can there's just so much information out there. I could even
Mhm.
plug the book, right? Get Dirt Rich
Yeah.
and that'll walk you through the steps. Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say the highest risk is? Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, real estate investing is risky. What if I lose my shirt? Like, what happens? I think the biggest question people have is, what happens if I buy, 3 parcels of land and then they don't sell, or I can't
Mm.
sell them to the neighbors or to anywhere online.
Yeah. So that's actually how I started in land investing was I put on my investment banker hat and I thought, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? And the worst case scenario was I owned raw land. So I'm not filling up my garage with a bunch of stuff, which would annoy my wife, right? I have nothing to maintain, nothing to protect. It can't be destroyed. And with inflation, that just continues to go up in value. So the way I looked at it was the worst case was I could barter it, right? Like maybe I'd get free haircuts or free dentistry. If was sort of like the worst case that I thought of. But in reality, after doing this for 25 years and 6,500 deals, I've never been stuck with a piece of raw land. They all sell at the right price. So your biggest risk is just overpaying. And if you overpay
Okay.
in time, you won't be overpaid and you'll be able to sell that land. But essentially, because we're making it irresistible with our pricing and making it a car payment so that most people can afford it, you have
Mhm.
very, very little risk, if any risk. I mean, there's risk for everything, but like, I mean, you can make mistakes, but it's really hard.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard that term called seller finance. Is that what you call it, or do you call it what do you call that?
It's seller finance because you can't go to a bank and get a land loan.
All right. So now let's dive in really quick for the last few minutes. What if you have no money and you want to do what you talked about before, which is using other people's money? How do you go about doing that?
So if you have no money, then first of all, that's a problem, right? Because if I'm an investor, I want to see that you have a track record before I'm going to give you money. So you need to figure out
Right.
a way to get some money. Maybe it's debt. Maybe it's a credit card. Because if we're averaging
Hmm.
300 to 1,000% return on our money, you can borrow at 18%. on a credit card.
Right. And it sounds like it's like a low barrier to entry. It's not like we have to come up with 20 grand. It's more like 3,000 or 1,000 or 1,500, depending on how big of piece of land we buy.
Yeah. I mean, I have clients that they're buying land for $500 and they'll sell it for, $2,000. So there's definitely ways to do it with very
Yeah,
little
like
money.
business lines of credit or different things like that.
Yeah. So it's basically, well, how do I solve this problem? And that's the way to do it, is you just have to be creative. And then once you have that track record, you can then go to an investor and say, hey, got some money sitting in the bank. I'll give you 10, 12% on your money, and then use other people's money.
I like that. Well, it sounds like you have the right formula. Tell us where people can go to get your book or where they can go on your website to find out more information so they can make sure they're using your formula and not paying too much for the land.
Yeah. So they want to go to thelandgeek.com. And then I have a link for your listeners, and they can get Dirt Rich for free. They just have to pay shipping. And that's going to be a great way to see if this model resonates with them or not.
Awesome. I love that. Free book is perfect. I think that's a great way to get people to read your book. And for those who are really interested, they're going to go and get it today. Well, what's one last word of wisdom you'd give to any new investor that's ready to dive in?
Yeah. So there's this great Zig Ziglar quote. And he says, if you'll do for the next 3 to 5 years what other people won't do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what other people can't do. And so I love that quote because he doesn't say next 3 to 5 months. It's 3 to 5 years to start a business. And so I think that if you have that kind of grit and that resilience, that determination to transform your life, you need to think 3 to 5 years and have that as your time horizon.
We'll go ahead and put that note up in our show notes. We'll put the link so you can go get the free book, Dirt Rich, and you can go to thelandgeek.com. And thank you so much, Mark, for being on our show.
Thanks, Jen.
Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Elite Expert Insider.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full-spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.